everybody. I'm Victoria Simmons with the Georgia Post and this week's edition of the Georgia Post Review. My co-host is Kristi Watkins this morning. Thank you. And our guest is Ryan Johnson, Clerk of the Crawford County Superior Court.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. And he's going to tell us a lot about the Superior Court and some changes coming up. But first, Ron, tell us a little bit about your background and how long you've been in the position.
Okay. I've sort of done two stints in county government, and my first county government job was in 1997. At that time, I was approached by Miss Cynthia Davis to come work with her at the tax commissioner's office, and I agreed, and I started there in January of 1997. And I worked with her up until about November of 2004. So I was in office, or I worked for her for essentially her first 2 terms of office. At that time I left. I did a little spell with the Peach County Tax Assessor's Office. And starting in 2005, I worked locally with a local real estate developer of Southern Forest Properties. And it was in 2010 when Mr. Johnny Castleberry, who had been clerk of Superior Court for almost 30 years at the time, passed away unexpectedly, and there was a special election that year. And I put my name in the hat, and I was elected at a runoff race, I think in November of 2010. So I've been serving as clerk of Superior Court now since 2011, and we'll have had 8 years in at the end of this year.
So when's the next election?
The next election, the clerk of Superior Court, along with the sheriff, the probate judge, and the tax commissioner, I think I've named all 4 of them there. We all run on the presidential cycle, so we will run again in 2020.
Well, tell us a little bit about your office, what it does, and I know you want to talk about some changes that are taking place.
The Clerk of Superior Court, primarily, the biggest thing that it does is that it is we are the official record holder or custodian of real estate documents. That's probably one of the big things that we do. We have deed books dating back to the early 1800s. I believe around 1830 is where our deed books start. We maintain those deed books in the records room along with other real estate related instruments and documents, whether those be liens, federal tax liens, county tax liens, state tax liens. We also maintain case files, civil and criminal nature. Also, too, I'm clerk of juvenile court, so we also maintain juvenile court case files as well as adoption case files as well. Now, that's sort of the real estate and the court side of it. What we also do is we handle jury summons. So when you get a jury summons through the mail, those we do roughly about 8 times a year, if my math is right, maybe a little less. We have 2 terms of court in Crawford County. We have what we call our March term and our October term. And during those terms, what we do is we impanel a grand jury. So we send out grand jury summons twice a year for March and in October. Then after that, what we have is after each subsequent impaneling of a grand jury, we will have a trial week. So we have a civil trial week each October and in March. We just had one here about a little less than a month ago for that. And we will summon traverse jurors for those trial weeks. And then we have 2 weeks of criminal trials, and that usually falls on May, the first week of May, and then the first week of December. And we summon jurors for that. So we send out jury summons about six different times a year. Sometimes, if there is a special case that we have to have heard that doesn't fall within the confines of that criminal or civil trial week, we will specially set something. So there are circumstances, and it's been few and far between, where we will summon jurors outside of those. And we maintain those jury records, for several years. And then after that, outside of real estate and court and jury, I also, this is a duty that all clerks of Superior Court picked up in 2011, was we call it a couple of different things. Now it's referred to as an appeal administrator to the Board of Equalization. Now, a lot of people don't have a clue about what the Board of Equalization does, but what it is, it's a level of, it's basically one of the levels of appeals that's available to property owners when they're appealing their property values. So for an example, if you appeal your property value to the Board of Assessors, and the Board of Assessors makes no changes to your property value, then you have the right to appeal it a step up the ladder, so to speak, to the Board of Equalization. That's just one of them. The Board of Equalization is impaneled by the grand jury, and they are residents of Crawford County. We have, right now, we currently have 6 regular members, and, well, let me say, 6 members, 3 alternates, and 3 regular members. And they serve for 3-year terms. And so each year we have 2, their terms are staggered. So that's a responsibility that we've picked up in the last 7 years or so. So we do a little bit of all of that at the clerk's office.
Yeah. And I know y'all started the process of putting all that on computer
yes.
as well, I think,
yes.
in the last couple of years.
One of the first things that I did when I took office, a gentleman who was a surveyor mentioned to me that he said, if you get elected, he said, one of the first things I want you to do is fix those plat books. There were 13 plat books there that were all in varying degrees of organization and disorganization. And one of the first things that I did is I contracted out to a company that came in. They took every one of those plat books and took them apart and digitized every single plat that was in there. And that has, and then shortly thereafter, we had all of those books professionally rebound. Some were in books that had just fallen apart over the course of several years. And that has been a big help, because now we have these plats that are available, and they were scanned in at the highest resolution available at the time in a JPEG format. So they're photo quality resolution, so you can zoom in to the smallest minute detail if need be. And we have offered that to surveyors. Surveyors love the ability to come in with a flash drive and be able to put all of those documents where they can, access them when they need to. That's been probably the biggest thing on that end. After that, we sort of geared from plats onto civil and criminal case files. So what we've been able to do is we started at a point certain, and we've been moving back year by year by year by year. So now we have scanned in both civil and criminal. They have all been scanned in from date current back to 1993. So we have a 25-year backlog, both civil and criminal, that have been scanned in. And that serves 2 main benefits. The biggest benefit is that if somebody comes in and needs a copy of a decree or a copy of an order, or a copy of a criminal disposition. It means now, as long as it's in that 25-year time span, if they have a name or a case number, we can go in, we can pull it up, we go exactly to the document they need, and we print it out. So we're not having to go back and search and manually pull out a case file, unstaple something, run it through a copier, because that's how case files get mangled up over, years and years and years. So that's one of the big benefits. The other benefit to that is that every time we scan something in, every single night, that data gets backed up. We participate with a service that's provided free of charge to the county that's called My Vault. And it's funded and worked in conjunction with the Georgia Superior Court Clerk's Cooperative Authority. We refer to it, that's a mouthful, we refer to it as the Clerk's Authority for short. And they have provided us with a device that's located in our network room. And every night at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, there's a backup that's done of all of our data. And that data is then backed up to their location in Atlanta, and it's backed up one extra time at another off-site location, and then I think it's backed up again out of state, somewhere, outside of Georgia. So even in a scenario where something catastrophic had happened in Atlanta, that all of this data is backed up securely off-site. So that's another big benefit of putting all of this stuff, into the network, so to speak.
All that scanning, that saves a lot of time, though, too.
Yes.
It was very time-consuming, I know.
Yes, it is. We worked. We tried to figure out ways that we could do it. Some cases get very lengthy, and when you're trying to scan in something, and the way that we do it now, and we'll do it from here forward, is that everything is scanned in under a proceeding. So you have a complaint, you have an answer, you have an order, and we would scan each thing in separately like that. When we got to some of those older case files, we just opted on a lot of those to just put case file, and we would scan everything in, because that's what you're trying to do, is mainly save these documents and make them easily available, and plus you're keeping them backed up. So but yes, that's been one of the things that we've looked at, is definitely trying to make those documents safer and make them easily available as well.
So we have some changes coming up in the Superior Court.
Yes, we do. We have, this has probably been, since I've been clerk of Superior Court, it's probably been one of the biggest changes that we've had that's come down the pipeline, and it's civil e-filing. And this has been probably a 5 to 6 year process, probably even longer than that from the original gestation of this idea. But starting January 2nd, since we're not open January 1st, starting January 2nd, all civil and domestic cases in the state of Georgia, with the exception of a few, will all be required to be filed electronically. And what that's going to do is it's going to eliminate, for the better part, paper. Cases will exist, for the most part, in a digital format, from initiation to disposition. And this becomes, let me say this, we've been e-filing in Crawford County since May of 2015. It has been in a voluntary situation. Many counties opted to go into this over the last 3 or 4 years, and it's all been sort of on a voluntary basis. So an attorney can file a case in paper, but then maybe another attorney can come in and file electronically. So we have some cases that are still being filed paper, some going paper and e-file, and some going e-file only. Those have been sort of few and far between, the ones who have filed electronically and gone, start to finish in that format. But yes, it is something that is coming. And to give you an idea of sort of how this is going to be a tremendous change, I think the best thing I have to do is sort of give you sort of how a case goes from start to finish. Generally, in a civil or a domestic suit, you always have a plaintiff and you have a defendant. Sometimes they're referred to as petitioners and respondents, but they're essentially the same. You have a civil case. Maybe it is a situation somebody owes you some money. Maybe they went back on a contract. A lot of our general civil cases are those kinds of situations, breaches of contracts. Didn't pay off the car note, or a lot of them tend to be credit card situations. So the domestic side of that, generally you'll find are divorce cases, legitimation cases, and things tied into things of a domestic nature, child support, modifying child support, and so on. The way that it did work is that you would have a petition or a complaint, and that complaint would either be brought in or mailed in. Sometimes they would use Postal Service or FedEx or one of the other UPS. We would take that document and we would put our file stamp information on it. We would assign it a case number. Then usually at the request of the filer, they may want that document served. And generally they are going to have it served. And we would take those documents, provide copies if need be. Sometimes they would need 2 copies because they want a file stamp copy for their record, and they may want a file stamp copy to serve if the person lives somewhere else or out of the jurisdiction. So you're starting with lots of paper at that point. Then after that point, we're creating a case file. So, we've got this folder that we're putting all this information in. Well, the defendant or the respondent gets served with this documentation, and then after a while, what they can do is that they can, depending on how they choose to do for it, they can file an answer or go hire an attorney to file an answer. So then the answer comes in. Well, then you've got the next course of paperwork. And as the case moves forward, more documents get filed back and forth, back and forth. So sometimes the case file starts off and it starts moving and moving and moving, and it's finally getting to where you get to an end. Well, at that point right there, now we have a case file, and it may be, about an A thick, sometimes even larger. Well, now we're required, as custodians of the court, to maintain this case file. And in some cases, we maintain them in perpetuity. So every year you've got cases upon cases upon cases being filed, and that's going to be there. But the one thing that's not changing is the size of our record room. So now we're running into situations in which, in our case, we still have sufficient amount of space in there, but it is a finite amount of space. And, our courthouse is 16 years old as of this year, and I don't anticipate there being any major structural changes to add on space. So, with this e-filing, it is hopefully going to eliminate the gobs and gobs and gobs of paper that we take in on a regular basis. And the way that it's going to work is that we have instituted, we have ours set up right now. We have a public access terminal, which is located in the law library right next to my office. And that's going to be used for the public if you are a pro se litigant, that means you're acting without an attorney, and you want to file a case, you will come to the courthouse. We have the terminal set up. There's a scanner there. They will be able to initiate their case, pay for it, and do all of it electronically there in the courthouse. Now, pro se litigants tend to be sort of the minority in court. A lot of times the attorneys are the ones who are going to be probably the main users of the e-filing system. And, excuse me, we've already had several attorneys who have called and asked questions about it. A lot of them are already using it right now. So it's not going, for the attorneys involved, it's not going to be a major change for them. But for the pro se litigants, the ones who have come into the office who are handling these cases on their own, it is going to be a little bit of a change for them, because it's not going, we're not going to be accepting these cases in the same way that they may have been used to with, bringing, papers in and receiving papers back. The fee structure is not going to change any. The filing fees are going to remain the same. And as long for pro se litigants, I have to be very careful and say that as long as they're using the public access terminal at the courthouse, it will be a thing in which there will be no additional fees or charges. On the attorney side of that, there will be. There are some fees at the initiation that I think it's about $30 per party when they file cases electronically. And after a certain amount of pleadings are filed, then there's a fee per pleading. Because unfortunately, you've got to pay for an e-filing system. It's not something that just springs up out of nowhere. There are a handful of e-filing providers, and essentially all they are is just e-filing portals. The one that we've sort of used primarily here in Crawford County is Peach Court. They're probably in about 75% or so of Georgia counties. There are other ones such as Tyler Technologies and Odyssey, and I think there's a few more out there as well. But it's something that we're really looking forward to. I'm hoping that Peach Court, as a matter of fact, has just provided us last week with a document that will be a step-by-step process. We're going to have that in the law library as well. And they'll be able to, it's just a page-by-page flow chart of every step of how they'll file their cases. So that's going to be a tremendous help. Mm-hmm. And we will be available as well. While that terminal will not be in our office, we will be available as well to help citizens, file their cases when need be.
Yeah, because some citizens might not still know how to use a computer very well.
Right,
so.
Right. And we've got it. I wanted the computer system to be as easy as possible. It is it's a very simple computer, and it's going to be designed in such a way where the e-filing is going to be the only thing you can really do off of this computer. So you're not going to have a whole lot of other extraneous items out there that might confuse them, and we're going to try to make it as easy as possible as we can for them.
Well, can people do that off-site, or does it
Absolutely.
have to be?
They can do it off-site as well. The only benefit of doing it at the courthouse is those fees that are waived. If you do it at home through any of the e-filing portals that are available, you will be subject to the fees. So the benefit of doing it at the site on the courthouse is that some of those fees will be waived. But yes, if you've got the proper equipment, and you will have to have at minimum a scanner, because you have to take whatever documents that you've completed, you have to be able to upload those documents and scan them and upload them.
Anything else that going on there that you'd like the public to know? Or-
Well, we are e-filing real estate documents now. That is not mandatory. I don't believe that real estate documents will ever become mandatory. But we've been e-filing plats now. Now, plat e-filing has been mandatory for almost 2 years now. We do UCC e-filing. And state tax lien e-filing. That's one that started January of this year. All the state tax liens now that come from the Department of Revenue for state income tax or any other type of tax that the Department of Revenue assesses, all of those are filed electronically now.
Now, can you go online from offsite if you're looking for a specific
Yes.
thing, or that?
You can, the Clerk's Authority, as I mentioned earlier, has a website. It's www.gsccca.org. Now, that is a subscription site, but you can use it. We have it available at the courthouse free of charge. We have a terminal that's set up in the records room. You can search all counties, but only images from our county you'll be able to actually pull up, print, and view. Every clerk's office, has access to this in their offices. Now, if you use it off-site or in your home, there is a subscription fee to use it. And when you pay the subscription fee, you can search records from far north as, Walker County down all the way to Charlton County. So you can go up and down the entire state and search records in each clerk's office.
Okay.
Now, that pertains to real estate documents. That doesn't pertain to civil and criminal case files and other items like that. That would deal probably deeds, plats, liens, those things there.
Okay.
Oh, and notary. We are also the office that issues certificates of notary. So, we do that as well. And that's something that you can also do. You can apply for your notary, the first part of the process, through the Clerk's Authority. So.
And this new mandatory e-file starts January 2nd?
Yes,
Okay.
January 2nd, 2019.
Okay. Well, wow, that's been really interesting to know some of that. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming and sharing that with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
That's our show for today, and our guest has been Ryan Johnson from Clerk of the Superior Court in Crawford County with some really good information for us to know. And if you have any other questions, you can contact Ryan at his office, right?
Right.
And the two clerks in your office are?
Miss Lacey Ivy and Miss Ashley Riggins.
Okay, and they'd be glad to help you too. So we thank you for being with us today, and thank you, Kristi. And we will see you next time.